In this alternate history, the United States stops believing the law applies to everyone, and the Republic never gets that belief back.
This story is fictional. It's based on real events, but everything beyond the known facts is speculation. Our goal is to explore an alternate timeline, not to rewrite history, but to imagine what might have been.
In July of 2026, a quiet legal settlement became one of the most explosive stories in Washington. Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche, who had once served as Donald Trump's personal defense lawyer, helped craft a deal between the President, the Internal Revenue Service, and the Justice Department. The arrangement would shield Trump and his family from audits for years to come. To critics, it looked like the President had used the machinery of federal law enforcement to place himself above the tax code that binds every other American. Senator John Cornyn of Texas, a senior Republican on the Judiciary Committee and no reflexive enemy of the President, said publicly that he was concerned. That word carried weight. When a loyal member of the majority signals unease, the pressure behind closed doors is usually far greater. In the real timeline, the concern stayed a concern. Hearings were scheduled, lawyers argued, the story burned hot, cooled, and vanished into the churn of the news cycle. But what if Cornyn's concern had not stayed a polite word? What if he had decided the line was finally crossed and used his seat on the committee to demand the deal be voided and Blanche investigated for corruptly serving his former client from inside the Justice Department? The first domino fell within a week. Cornyn joined a handful of institutionalist Republicans, every committee Democrat, to issue subpoenas for the settlement documents. The White House refused, citing executive privilege. Then Blanche, acting on the President's instruction, ordered the Justice Department to ignore the subpoenas entirely. For the first time in modern history, a sitting Attorney General openly told the Senate that its lawful demands would not be honored. That refusal detonated a constitutional crisis. The Senate voted to hold Blanche in contempt. But contempt of Congress is enforced by the Justice Department, the very agency Blanche controlled. He simply declined to prosecute himself. The enforcement mechanism the founders built had a fatal flaw, and everyone watching realized it at the same moment. The law only works when the people inside the system agree to be bound by it. Trump, sensing weakness, went further. He fired the IRS commissioner who had objected to the deal, replaced her with a loyalist who declared the audit shield permanent, then extended it to a dozen allies and donors. Tax enforcement was now a tool of political favor. Within a month, quiet whispers moved through the country's wealthiest circles. If loyalty bought immunity, loyalty was worth buying. Campaign donations to the president's political operations surged. So did something uglier, the sense that paying taxes at all was now optional for anyone with the right friends. The IRS began to hollow out. Career auditors resigned in protest, pushed out for pursuing cases against connected figures. Revenue collection, already strained, started to slip. As word spread that the system was rigged and enforcement was dead, compliance among high earners dropped. By autumn, the Treasury was reporting a shortfall in the hundreds of billions. Bond markets, which run entirely on the faith that the United States collects what it is owed, began to twitch. Interest rates on federal debt climbed as investors quietly repriced the risk that America could no longer govern its own finances. The political system fractured next. Cornyn, having staked his name on the rule of law, was branded a traitor by the president and targeted in his own primary. But his stand had cracked something loose. A block of governors, some Republican, some Democrat, announced their states would withhold certain federal tax cooperation until the audit shield was rescinded. Washington's authority, which depends on the states accepting it, began to peel away at the edges. The courts tried to intervene. A federal ordered the settlement void and commanded Blanche to comply with the subpoenas. The administration appealed, delayed, and in the meantime ignored the ruling. When the judge held the Attorney General in contempt, no marshal was willing to arrest him. The marshals answered to the Justice Department too. The judiciary issued words, and the words bounced off. A court order, it turned out, was only paper if the executive decided to laugh at it. By winter, the damage was structural. The dollar weakened as foreign governments questioned they were lending to a functioning republic or a personal enterprise. 2 credit agencies downgraded U.S. debt, citing the collapse of institutional checks. Borrowing costs spiked, blowing a hole in the federal budget just as tax revenue cratered. To cover the gap, the government cut deeply. Payments were delayed, services suspended, obligations missed. Ordinary people who had never followed a Senate hearing felt it now. Slower checks, higher prices, and the creeping fear that no one was actually minding the rules anymore. The final state was not a coup or a war. It was quieter than that, and more permanent. The idea that the law applied to everyone equally, the single belief that had held the country together for 2.5 centuries, was gone. In its place stood a simple understanding. Power protected itself, and everyone else paid. The wealthy structured their lives around access to the president. The states hedged their loyalties. The courts spoke into silence. And the Treasury, starved of the revenue that only trust can produce, could fund the government that had once claimed to serve all its citizens. A single settlement, waved through when one senator's concern was allowed to fade, had taught the most powerful people in America that the rules were optional. Once they believed it, there was no law left to make them stop.
In this world, history went one way. But here, we ask what could have happened. If you want more alternate timelines and government what-ifs, subscribe, comment your theory, and stay tuned. This is State of What If.